law enforcement agencies have taken on the president's inner circle, have entered the spotlight, and what implications does that hold for us all? Hello there, my name is Anastasiia Husarieva. I'm about to give you all the details, so in the interim, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Therefore, Tymur Mindich has now found himself under the close observation and scrutiny of various special services. And now, let's carefully consider what implications this holds for Zelensky, and equally for Bankova. The FBI, the Security Service of Ukraine, and the National Anti-Corruption Bureau are simultaneously investigating and taking an interest in Tymur Mindich, President Volodymyr Zelensky's business partner. His apartment underwent thorough checking for wiretapping, and dozens of criminal cases are connected to him. Who is this man really? Why is he in the spotlight of the special services, and how could his actions shake up the presidential administration? He does not appear at forums, nor does he grant interviews or offer comments on political decisions. His face does not appear on television news, and his name is almost never encountered in the publicly accessible government registries. However, in private conversations with politicians, businessmen, and law enforcement, his name comes up more and more often. We are referring to Tymur Mindich, a prominent businessman, producer, and co-owner of Kvartal 95 studio, who is also a longtime friend of President Volodymyr Zelensky and is often referred to as the president's shadow in political circles. During the last 2 years, a new informal influence group focusing on and encompassing the energy sector, the defense sphere, finance, and a segment of the media has crystallized around Mindich. Tymur Mindich was born and grew up in Dnipro city. During the 1990s, he operated in close association with Igor Kolomoisky's business group, serving as a trusted confidant and intermediary. Through him, shares and ownership stakes in private's various media assets were formally registered and managed. It was during this period that he began to form connections with the future president. As Kvartal 95 transitioned from being merely a comedy show to a burgeoning business empire, Mindich was the one in charge of the studio's organizational and administrative aspects. Deals, rights, contracts, organizing meetings. The studio's former producers characterized him as the company's brain, its intellectual core. Zelensky served as its public face, and the duo worked flawlessly. After the release of the TV series Servant of the People and the 2019 presidential election campaign, Mindich remained in the shadows, not taking on any official government roles, but he nonetheless maintained his privileged access to the highest echelons of power. Tymur Mindich is an individual without an official mandate, but with extraordinary access to the highest echelons of power. Officially, he wasn't part of the president's office team, nor a member of any state council. Nevertheless, 3 individuals conversant with the government's functioning, as reported by our colleagues at Ukrainska Pravda, indicate that Mindich frequently accesses Bankova via a service entrance, and his attendance is notably absent from all internal timetables. A former deputy minister stated that if a certain matter cannot be handled via official channels, then Mindich personally assumes responsibility for it. He doesn't introduce himself, but everyone understands he's acting on behalf of the president. And so, in this way, an informal network of influence began to take shape within the system, which is referred to internally as the Mindich groups. The history of his visits to Bankova has some interesting details. As early as the beginning of 2020, amidst the global pandemic, journalists documented Mindich's visits to the president's office on 3 separate occasions. In a particular interview, he elaborated that his presence was merely to offer assistance as both a comrade and a fellow citizen. And then, in 2021, Zelensky celebrated his birthday at Mindich's apartment, a fact that further underscores the exceptionally close connection between them, despite Mindich holding no formal official position whatsoever. Following Russia's full-scale invasion, which commenced in 2022, access to that very same governmental institution became considerably restricted. Quarter was restricted quite significantly, to the point where controlling or monitoring Mindich's visits became practically impossible to maintain. Nevertheless, this conferred upon him a prominent standing within the power structure. Even though he is officially a private citizen, his constant visits, involvement in informal negotiations and processes, and the total absence of these activities in official schedules clearly reveal that he can advance decisions through unofficial means that are typically made through formal channels. Mindich does not hold a position, yet he wields influence. And this raises a question that concerns not only political circles but also the public at large: who truly makes the decisions within the state? When such shadowy figures possess direct access to the president and their influence is so substantial that crucial economic and political matters are entirely dependent on their sway. To put it mildly, he is forming a new informal vertical of influence. Quietly, discreetly, yet remarkably effectively. To the ordinary citizen, this could appear enigmatic, but it is precisely such individuals who shape the nation's trajectory, operating behind the scenes and away from public declarations. After 2022, following Ukraine's dire energy crisis, Tymur Mindich stepped in as an unofficial coordinator, effectively bridging the gap and facilitating crucial connections between businesses and the government within the energy sector, playing a pivotal role in the situation. According to insiders within both political and government circles, he cultivated strong connections with Oleksiy Chernyshov, the head of Naftogaz of Ukraine, as well as the former Minister of Energy of Ukraine, German Galushchenko, and Deputy Minister Svetlana Grinchuk, who is currently visible on your screens, who is responsible for the oil and gas sector. Commencing in 2024, a number of private enterprises, notably those associated with the former private entities, were awarded substantial government contracts for the provision of fuel, specifically encompassing supplies for the Ministry of Defense. According to sources in the Cabinet of Ministers, no decision on fuel supply was made without Mindich's involvement. Of course, there are no official documents to confirm this, but the convergence of facts looks convincing. Even back then, government and business circles started to observe that front companies were abruptly securing substantial contracts, and the leaders of state-owned enterprises were being replaced following unofficial discussions. Sources from our colleagues at Ukrainska Pravda emphasize that through these connections, Mindich essentially coordinated the processes that determined who would control fuel supplies and who would not, effectively orchestrating these crucial decisions. This exemplified how a clandestine network of influence, spearheaded by an individual lacking an official mandate, started to mold the nation's energy policy. The mechanism is quite straightforward. Mindich, while not formally holding a position of power, commands the trust of key officials and maintains access to significant processes that involve billions of hryvnias and vital strategic resources. By mid-2024, the affairs of state energy companies had drawn considerable attention from all corners, involving both politicians and business circles. Naftogaz of Ukraine recorded a substantial net profit of 24.4 billion hryvnias during the initial 6 months of 2024. This marked a significant increase from the previous year, when its profit for the same period stood at merely 6.6 billion hryvnias. Quite striking, wouldn't you say? The consortium also encompassed Ukernafta, which during that identical time frame generated a profit of 16.38 billion hryvnias. The company successfully secured over 200 government tenders amounting to a total value of 22.5 billion hryvnias. For the Ministry of Defense and various energy enterprises. The dividends transferred by Ukernafta to the state reached an impressive 5 billion hryvnias. However, there is a different narrative that lurks behind these figures. In the materials presented by NABU and SAPO, it is stated that a portion of Ukernafta's agreements could have concerned the misappropriation of funds amounting to over 13.8 billion hryvnias. The ongoing investigation reveals that certain agreements were entered into with companies closely associated with the private group, which has historically exercised significant control over substantial segments of the energy market for many years. Another intriguing aspect: the supervisory boards of Naftogaz of Ukraine and Ukernafta were in discussions about fostering closer cooperation, boosting production and implementing improved management standards, and also the coordination of activities among companies. This is precisely where Tymur Mindich's influence starts to become apparent. Even though he holds no official position within government bodies, various sources assert that he was likely the individual responsible for pivotal decisions regarding significant energy contracts. He also effectively managed the financial flows and wielded influence over the appointments of leaders for crucial strategic companies. When we take a broader look, these are not merely sterile figures. When state-owned enterprises secure multi-billion-dollar contracts and concurrently criminal investigations emerge concerning them, it unequivocally signals that those who wield control over critical resources possess the power to shape both the political landscape and the economic trajectory of the nation. It is specifically within this framework that Naftogaz's and Ukrnafta's operations become integral to a broader scheme, where clandestine networks and unofficial channels establish a genuine hierarchy of power. Moreover, the individuals who remain out of the public eye are the ones who ultimately dictate how billions are allocated and who truly holds the power to make critical decisions within the government. In 2025, it was confirmed by multiple sources within law enforcement agencies that the NABU, the SSU, and even the FBI are meticulously investigating the connections of individuals within Tymur Mindich's closest associates, alongside scrutinizing operations linked to the previous assets of Ihor Kolomoisky's business group. This extends beyond merely standard inspections of financial flows. Large-scale monetary transactions, complex agreements, and significant contracts linked to state-owned enterprises are undergoing meticulous scrutiny. This also includes the procurement of dual-purpose equipment, which can serve both civilian and defense applications, being closely monitored and evaluated. Defense contracts, alongside concerted efforts to facilitate capital outflow abroad through an intricate network of Cypriot companies previously linked to private assets, have also fallen under the intensified scrutiny of law enforcement. These operations, according to informed sources, are currently under scrutiny to ensure their legality and adherence to state regulations. While direct accusations against Mindich himself have not yet been filed, according to sources, his telephone has been under careful monitoring for a considerable time. This signifies that special services are diligently tracking all his contacts and negotiations, because even indirect participation in these illicit schemes could be immensely vital to the ongoing investigation. Such close attention from the special services demonstrates the substantial scale of influence that Mindich, even without official state positions, can exert over the country's economic and defense processes. When silence is weaponized, Mindich steadfastly refuses to comment on any of the accusations. Our colleagues from Ukrainska Pravda sent him questions through several channels but received no response. One of his acquaintances explained that Mindich never responds publicly and always prefers to have conversations directly without witnesses. This distinctive approach positions him as a highly effective intermediary for sensitive matters that cannot be officially formalized. Currently, Mindich's name does not appear in court documents. He is not under investigation and is not a suspect. At the same time, dozens of individuals involved in criminal cases are active around him, with searches and checks being conducted. His close acquaintances interpret this as pressure being put on the system, whereas critics perceive it as the initial step in a much-needed government cleanup. No official comments have been provided by Bankova concerning Mindich's involvement in government affairs. They only stated that he is a private individual who does not participate in decision-making. Nevertheless, behind the scenes, sources reveal that any phone call from Mindich is taken with utmost seriousness and given careful attention, even by those officials who generally do not heed outside advice or inform sources. Simultaneously, a faction within Zelensky's team suggests that they should publicly distance themselves from him, whereas others contend that comprehending the president's mindset is unattainable without Mindich, given that he is an integral part of his personal life. For Zelensky, this situation has become a personal ordeal, clearly illustrating the significant challenge in distinguishing between personal friendships and the vital interests of the state. A lot of people think that this behavior stems from a pragmatic approach and a carefully chosen strategic silence. Mindich remains outside the political clamor, yet concurrently exerts influence over crucial decisions. However, some interpret this approach as a means to leverage the unique position of an unseen figure, furthering their personal and commercial agendas effectively. The Mindich story clearly illustrates that in Ukrainian politics, those not publicly visible sometimes wield greater influence, and crucial decisions are often made away from the cameras and microphones, operating in the shadows yet very much under the spotlight of scrutiny. Mindich is not under investigation, but the FBI, SBU, and NABU are watching him more closely than any politician. His deep-seated friendship with President Zelensky, coupled with his extensive control over pivotal strategic markets, renders him exceptionally dangerous for Bankova. Just one single move from him and the corridors of power would explode with new scandals. And now, my friends, I would like to ask you to share your impressions of what you have heard. So, do you really think these shadow curators are actually running the country? Or perhaps it only seemed that way to us and there's really no need to create panic out of nothing? We'll wait for further statements from NABU, SAPO, perhaps the FBI will inform us of something. And of course, as soon as we find out anything ourselves, we will let you know. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, write a comment, and I'll see you in the next broadcasts. I'm Anastasiia Husarieva. Be safe and wash your hands. That's all. Bye.